It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the four films of July 27th, 2007. On today's show, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Aaron Eckhart star in the second big movie of the summer about cooking. This time there are no rats in this one. We see the film that killed Lindsay Lohan's film career. No, really, this movie killed her career. And, you thought Soul Plane was a bad black version of Airplane? Well, now we have the black version of Caddyshack with Who's Your Caddy? But before we get to all of those, there were a lot of big, highly anticipated movies in 2007. But as I said at the end of the last show, you can have your Spider-Man 3s, you can have your Shrek 3s, Pirates of the Caribbean 3, Transformers. Certainly the most anticipated movie of the summer for me personally was this little beauty right here. I mean, as you can see, I'm pretty decked out for this particular review. And, yeah, I personally found this t-shirt to get ready for this one. But, The Simpsons movie, a movie that had been talked about for many, many years. I mean, they've been talking about doing a Simpsons movie all the way back to the peak years of the show, back in 1992. You know, Camp Krusty, the season premiere for season 4, was supposed to be that movie, but they couldn't figure out how to do a full-length movie based off of Bart and Lisa going to Camp Krusty, so that just essentially became an episode. There was also talks about a Simpsons version of Fantasia, and finally in 1998, they said they were going to do it, and they started working on it in 2001. They went through a number of different plot ideas, a number of different, scripts that they had to go through. They had a lot of unfinished material that ended up on the cutting room floor. There were guest appearances by people like Aaron Brockovich, Minnie Driver, Isla Fisher, Kelsey Grammer, Edward Norton. A lot of the footage got cut out of the movie. A lot of it is very much lost media. There's only a select few that made it onto the DVD and Blu-ray releases of the movie. And, there's a lot of stuff, including a much different looking Russ Cargill, who looks much less threatening than he does in the movie. But so many things out there. I'm hoping one day we finally get that big, Shout Factory, Kino Lorber, Disney-style box set, which includes every single deleted scene, because I think we should at least see it. I mean, it's been almost 20 years since this movie's come out, and I'm surprised we haven't gotten any kind of special release that shows the lost footage and all that. And hopefully we'll get it someday. I mean, lost media can come when you least expect it, so hopefully there will be lost media out there one day. But enough about the stuff that isn't in the movie. What about the movie itself? Is it any good? Well, let's start with the story. Homer causes Springfield to become a natural disaster zone when he dumps a silo full of pig crap into the lake. With his help, of course. He filled up the whole silo in just 2 days. Well, I helped. After this, the Simpsons become public enemy number one. They escape from Springfield and make a new life for themselves in Alaska. But little do they know, the head of the EPA, voiced by Albert Brooks, plans to blow Springfield because of its impact on the environment, and Homer has to become a hero and save the town from destruction. And much like when I saw the SpongeBob SquarePants movie coming out, I got very excited. I was always looking online for like a new trailer, poster, photos, anything, a commercial for the trailer. I mean, Fox did a really good job of promoting and marketing the hell out of this movie. You couldn't go to a 7-Eleven or a Burger King that summer without seeing stuff for the Simpsons movie. You'd watch Fox and watch episodes of the Simpsons, and they would have the trailer premieres on every one of the episodes when they put the trailer out, and it was always a must-see moment for me, because it's just like, okay, this is something I've been waiting for so many years. And, I saw this movie a number of times in the theaters. I saw it, I think I said 8 times last time around. I saw it 5 times in the theater. It was the most I ever saw a movie in a theater. It's still the most I've ever seen in a movie in a theater. I saw SpongeBob in the movie theater 4 times, I think. I think The Avengers, I saw 3 or 4 times, I think that's it. I mean, Simpsons, SpongeBob, and The Avengers, I think, are the biggest ones that I've seen multiple times in a movie theater. So, yeah, for a lot of people, it was a success. I mean, it was a critical success. It was a box office success. Some might have said that it may have been heavily front-loaded because it opened to $74 million and then only made about $183 million domestically. But still, that's still the highest grossing movie based off of an animated TV show, which for the longest time, it was the Rugrats movie, which barely cracked the $100 million mark back in 1998, and it's still the highest grossing animated movie it's an animated movie based off of a TV show opening is of all time, pretty much. I mean, it's still very much high up there. I mean, the last one, but to be honest, the last one we had since the Simpsons movie, I think, was the Bob's Burgers movie. Well, that was 15 years later. But what about the movie itself? Do I still like it? Yeah, but even as a big Simpsons fan like I am, I don't love it to the insane levels that I had when I first saw it. I mean, when I first saw it, it was just like, okay, this is something I've been waiting to see my whole life. Of course, I'm going to be very excited to see what's on screen here, but then you look at the movie itself, and it's not a bad movie by any means necessary, but it definitely feels a little underwhelming a little bit. I mean, for a movie based off The Simpsons, I thought they did the best job they could with a movie like this because of all the script problems they had to work with. The satire is really funny. These are the characters we've come to know and love. The comedy is still really good. The story works really well. I think one of the main faults with the movie itself is that we don't get enough of the characters we want to see. You know, aside from The Simpsons themselves, most of the characters only show up for about 30 to 45 seconds and only have a few lines of dialogue. In fact, the credits pretty much reveal all the actors and who they were playing, and half the characters in the bubbles don't even show up in the movie or have dialogue whatsoever. They're there, but many of them are just in the background or have one line or don't even speak at all. And another problem I think the movie has is that, not that it's bad or anything, but for a Simpsons movie, the story doesn't really call itself for a big feature-length adventure. And now, I'm not asking for the Simpsons to go on like an adventure like Alvin and the Chipmunks did, where, you know, they go around the world being on this race with all these diamond smugglers. I'm not expecting the DuckTales movie where they have to go up against a magical, mystical wizard. I mean, it's not like the King of the Hill Will Rogers commercial they did back in the day, which it's really funny, by the way, because for the longest time, a lot of people thought that was actually a scene from a King of the Hill movie. But no, that was a commercial for the Will Rogers Institute. But that's for another thing altogether. Look it up, though. It's actually pretty good. But like I said before, Camp Krusty was originally supposed to be the Simpsons movie back in 1992. And that probably could have made a great Simpsons movie if they had enough material to work with an 80-minute movie, but unfortunately they didn't. And just recently they had an episode that was about, maybe not even recently, 10 years ago. It was The Man Who Came to Be Dinner, where the Simpsons got taken to King and Kodos' home planet. And supposedly that was envisioned to be a sequel to the Simpsons movie, which again would have been an interesting idea. With the story they come up with this movie, it doesn't really push itself to something that could be resolved in 4 episodes. That could have been resolved in 4 episodes of the show. But then again, there's nothing wrong with the story itself by any means necessary. I just kind of was wishing for a little bit more of an epic adventure, like the Bob's Burgers movie. It doesn't have to be like the grand epic adventure where they have to go out of town and find somebody, and go on this grand adventure and all that. They have a grand adventure within the place that we know them at, and it's still pretty epic in its own merits, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like there could have been a much better story to tell with that, but the satirical comedy does work really well. A lot of them do hit bullseyes, especially in the TV version of this. There's a scene, of course, where, one of the big selling points was that you get to see Bart skateboarding naked, and there's going to be a scene where Bart's penis shows up. In the movie, you see it, but the TV version is very funny. What they do with it is that it says European version only, and that's just some pretty great stuff. I also like the jabs that they take at the environment, and even Fox themselves. And the funny thing about that whole thing about Bart's penis being shown is, like, I was wondering how they were able to get away with that, because, yeah, you see it, and you see it on the screen, and it's just like, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how the hell did they pull this off without getting an R rating? I think because I think the stupidest reason is that it's not him completely naked, and that's why they were able to get away with it, because it starts off with like an Austin Powers thing, and all of a sudden he goes through a shrub, and then on the bottom, that's where you see it, and it's just like, I think because they're not showing him with his penis out there on screen, or maybe it's just because it doesn't look like a penis. Like, you can make the argument that, he's flipping him off like this way or something like that, but I don't know, just crazy thinking on my part here. But when the movie gets epic and exciting, and it does, it delivers. I mean, the moment where Homer and Bart save Springfield is great. The climax is well done. Them riding on top of the dome, that's good stuff right there. And I think a lot of it is with the help of the score by Hans Zimmer, who does a very good job of handling the score here. Mixing the traditional style of music related to The Simpsons, as well as upping the ante with the score fitting for a movie. But again, sticking with the feel of the series itself. It's a very, and I didn't even mention this in my original review, but when it needs to get emotional, it does get very emotional and heartfelt. Like, I think the best actress in the movie is Julie Kavner as Marge Simpson, who really just goes all out and just gives it her all with this performance that she has here, because you feel her situation here. You know, her husband basically destroyed the town, and you know she's willing to go through thick and thin with with him no matter what. And then she has to have that breaking point where you know she records over their wedding video, and it's a very good scene, and it works because of the fact that Julie Kavner really gave it her all in there. They had to record that multiple times, tiring her out, and like, you know, it's very well done. And you realize, of course, that James L. Brooks is one of the producers, and yet it's just like, oh yeah, this is the guy that did Broadcast News, Terms of Endearment, you know, these great movies from back in the day. Maybe we should bring a little bit of that into this movie. And when it does that, I think it works very well. I think I'm underplaying the Simpsons movie a little bit more, but that was mostly because I felt like as the time has gone on, I've really gone back and forth on it. Not to the point where I hated it at any point in time. It's just, I don't know, I kind of wanted a little bit more from it. But the more and more as time has gone on, I've realized that, yes, this is a good movie. I think it is a film that fits to every Simpsons fan out there, and it works well as a satirical comedy. It works well for a big adventure. It's a really good movie. It's definitely one of the better animated TV adaptations out there. Would I consider it the best one? No, and this is coming from somebody who thinks The Simpsons is the greatest TV show of all time. I mean, I love the show, man. I still love it, even to this very day. And, yeah, the movie is I've gone back and forth over the years, but I never go to the point where I say, it's a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's a very enjoyable film. It's a moment in time that I'll never forget, seeing that movie in theaters multiple times. I mean, it's a very good movie. Would I like to see another Simpsons movie down the road? Absolutely. And I wouldn't mind waiting until after the show ends for it to happen so they can do whatever they want to do with it. And until then, this really does it very well, and this will hold up very well over time. I like it a lot. I think it's a very good film. Yeah, Simpsons movie. If you love The Simpsons, you're going to love the hell out of it. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the competition that came out that weekend to combat The Simpsons movie. Let's start off with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Aaron Eckhart in No Reservations. So in No Reservations, you have Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's a hard-edged chef whose life is turned upside down when she decides to take in her young niece following a tragic accident that kills her sister. And of course, she has a relationship with Aaron Eckhart, who's another chef coming in here, and the niece is played by Abigail Breslin. And you have a cast that also includes Patricia Clarkson and Bob Balaban, and you also have people like Zoe Kravitz making her first feature film debut, Lily Rabe. Overall, it's a fine movie, I guess, but at the same time, there's nothing about it that really makes it stand out as anything that great in general. It's way too over-dramatic at times. I mean, this is a story that goes all over the place. Like, it really has no idea what kind of a film it wants to be. But if they know that they can get the couples in there, they think they're home free. And I mean, this didn't do too badly. I mean, it made almost $100 million worldwide, so there was at least an audience for it. But as far as the film itself goes, yeah, it's one that I remember seeing it once. It never really did anything for me, and then I never saw it again afterwards, so yeah. So there you go. That's just a quick one on that one. No Reservations. Nothing bad about that one in particular, but nothing that great either. But with all that said, though, let's get to the garbage of the weekend. And trust me, we've got some pretty big garbage coming up here. Let's start off with the film that killed Lindsay Lohan's career, and this really was the film that did it. I Know Who Killed Me. Oh boy, was this a disaster of a movie. Where do you even begin? Well, first of all, let's talk about the plot. This is a story that revolves around Lindsay Lohan, who's a young woman who's abducted and tortured by a sadistic serial killer, and after surviving the abduction, she insists that her identity is that of another woman, a woman that she was talking about, as you saw there in a school report, that she thinks that is very real. And, yeah, this was a film that was heavily promoted as, oh, this is Lindsay Lohan's move into more darker territory. I mean, she plays a stripper. That means you're going to see her naked. And, yeah, you don't see her naked in this movie. Even though she's a stripper in this movie, it's rated R. And, yeah, you don't see her naked at all. Not one moment in this movie. So what was the point then? What's the point of making this movie? And yeah, not to mention that this was around that time when Lindsay Lohan was known for, publicly struggling with addiction and personal issues, and she was a nuisance on the set of movies. I mean, we talked about that with Georgia Rule, and yeah, this is a film that just is absolutely 100% such a disaster on so many levels because, it took all that goodwill that Lindsay Lohan had 4 years ago when she broke out with Freaky Friday and then Mean Girls and then had success with Herbie Fully Loaded. And then, just after that, the career turn the coaster just started going all the way down with stuff like Just My Luck, Georgia Rule, and now, lo and behold, this film. It also doesn't help that everybody in this movie is dislikable. You hate every single person here. You don't care about Lindsay Lohan's character because she comes off as a freak in this movie. Not a good type of freak though. Just a nut job who spends way too much time on this whole thing. And it's just like, you hate the parents. You hate the people that they're trying to help out. The serial killer comes out looking more likable than anybody else in this movie because everybody else just comes off as obnoxious or just self-centered and just everything about them just goes completely out the door so quickly. This film is an unbelievable mess of a movie that just fails on so many levels, and it's hard to believe that this movie has actually gone ahead and gotten one of those reappraisals by people, with people saying that it's actually not a bad movie at all. I don't know what they're seeing because, yeah, the mystery ain't that interesting. You can figure out right away, what the twist is going to be in this whole situation here, and it's not worth it at all. Nothing about this movie makes it worth it at all. And like I said, this was the film that killed Lindsay Lohan's chances of, becoming the next big movie star. Like, it was a good 4-year run while it lasted, but this was the film that did it, failing on so many levels, from the marketing campaign, from the performance itself, from the story itself. Everything about this movie just feels like this shouldn't have been a theatrical release. This feels like a film that you would see as the Lifetime movie of the week, and not even one that would be highly promoted. Just that one that would be like, we put new movies out every week, and you probably don't even know about it. This would be one of those movies. This would be one of those films that would be on that list. That's how bad this movie is. This is a terrible film. It's completely lies to you about what you're getting. You don't get anything about it in this movie whatsoever. It's a terrible film. Avoid it like the plague. I Know Who Killed Me. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie. And if you thought that movie was bad, and it was, wait until you see Who's Your Caddy. Bill Clinton's favorite comedy, by the way. That's not even a joke. That is literally what he said. Well, technically, he told it to Bradley Cooper and Todd Phillips in 2016 when they were on the Late Late Show. And, they talked about having dinner with Clinton in Thailand while they were filming The Hangover Part 2. Because I guess he had a cameo that he was going to do, but it didn't make the final cut. And then during that dinner, Clinton said he liked comedies, and he was asked what his favorite comedy was, and it said, Who's Your Caddy? Like really? This is the one that you like? This movie that, if Soul Plane didn't exist, this would be one of the worst comedies ever. And, I mean, it's a bad comedy, but good Lord, this is terrible. When hip-hop star Christopher C. Note Hawkins, played by Big Boy, is denied membership into an exclusive Carolina Pines country club, he comes up with a cunning plan that will oblige the country club to allow his acceptance. C-Note purchases property that contains land from the 17th hole and bribes the country club for a membership in exchange for the land. The rest of the movie plot revolves around the club members and their efforts to get C-Note kicked out while he disrupts the club's atmosphere. I'll give it this. This is a movie that actually made Caddyshack 2 more enjoyable than anything from this. I mean, Caddyshack 2 was a bad movie, but Caddyshack 2 had those little brief flashes of some hope. And, of course, a great Kenny Loggins song, and, I'm going in Nobody's Fool. Congratulations, Who's Your Caddy. You made Caddyshack 2 more likable than your pile of garbage here. This is a bad movie, and unlike a movie like Soul Plane, which is 100% terrible, it's one of the worst movies ever made. This is bad, but you could just tell that this film had nothing to gain from it whatsoever. Soul Plane is a bad movie because there was effort being put into it. They took their time to build the sets of the crazy stuff that happens in that movie. This feels like a cheap movie that was never meant to go to theaters whatsoever, and it only went to theaters because it had Big Boy as the main star of the movie. He's the biggest draw of the film. I mean, yeah, you've got guys like James Avery from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Jeffrey Jones from Beetlejuice in here, Annie Milonakis is probably the only other big name in here, Sherry Shepherd, of course, she was on Less Than Perfect at the time, Tamala Jones, Jennifer Lewis, Lil Wayne, Allie Landry, just, you know, it's just a mess of it's just a disaster of a movie. It's a film that is not funny in any way, shape, or form. It's a lame comedy, and I would say it's worse than Soul Plane, but I give Soul Plane more credit for how bad it is because effort was put into making that movie by people who clearly had no idea what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing with this movie. They knew that this was never meant to be a seriously good comedy whatsoever. And again, they knew that this was never supposed to go to the theaters at all. This is a film that clearly was supposed to be a direct-to-video release, but somebody at Dimension Films said, we'll put it in there because we've got this rapper in here that everybody knows of. I mean, that's one half of Outkast. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought he was an Outkast. Yeah. But of course he's from Outkast. So, of course, Andre 3000, Andre Benjamin is the other half of that. He's had a much better film career, obviously, than Big Boy has. And yeah, this is pretty bad. This is just a terrible movie on so many levels. Not one good moment came from this film whatsoever. But yeah, it's one of the worst comedies ever made. I mean, it is legitimately a bad comedy, and you should avoid it like the plague. Just avoid this movie, man. I've got nothing else to say about this one. That's Who's Your Caddy for you. And so with all that said, we're going to wrap up this edition of Time About the Movies. But the next time we meet, we've got 7 movies to look at next time around. It's a big way to start the month off. And, of course, you got the 3rd installment of the Bourne series with Matt Damon, The Bourne Ultimatum. Jason Lee takes on the role of Underdog in the first of his 2 live-action adaptations of classic animated properties. Sort of. I mean, Underdog, not really, but Alvin the Chipmunks is. But we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at one of the more criminally underrated comedies of all time, Andy Samberg and Hot Rod. A not-so-great comedy, Bratz, from Avi Arad. Jennifer Lopez and her then-husband Mark Anthony starring in El Cantante. Anne Hathaway in Becoming Jane. And David Wayne's all-star comedy, The 10, with Paul Rudd and Jessica Alba among its cast. So, a lot of movies to look at next time around, and we will delve into all of those coming up on the next episode. That'll be coming up tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification button, and the bell because you get updates on when new videos come out, and we do post here every day. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.